What I've noticed over the past several months as we've gotten back to school is that parents have been courageous. I mean, really taking on more than they ever have, whether it's, adding on that extra meal that they have to clean up, prep and clean up every day, all the snacks for those of you who still have kids at home. It's been incredible piling on virtual learning or hybrid learning on top of that. And then even for some of us, working from home, trying to figure out how to balance, work meetings on Zoom with kids' Zoom meetings when there's only one computer. It's just been a tremendous time. And I just want you to know that you're not alone and that there's a whole squad of parents out there all trying to figure it out too. And we've been meeting here in the Raising Our Resilience parent group. And for those of you who are viewing this in our Raising Our Resilience page, just know there's a place where you can come and be with other parents who are also trying to figure out how to be resilient in these really challenging times. You really don't have to go it alone. Even before the pandemic, I really took a bold stand that no parent should have to raise their children alone. We weren't built that way. We're built to be in community with each other, making sure that everybody feels supported and has the opportunity to be able to thrive even in really challenging times. And yes, this is a challenging time. We're here in a very challenging time. I know many people are also experiencing stress from having just being in a difficult political climate. For those of you who are here in the States, especially, some of you have been experiencing this for decades and you're tired. I hear you. Yeah. And so we're all about building our resilience here. And when I say survival skills, I really just mean like things that if we could make shifts in our families would make all the difference. And I've seen it work time and time again. I've worked with hundreds of families, dozens of parents intimately over the past few years, really looking at how do we go from, flipping our lids and yelling and using consequences and rewards more than we'd like, being in power struggles, having the kids not listen when we really want them to listen, to getting them to a place where they're actually on board with us, where we're not sort of constantly navigating all of this, together. And I think that one of the things that I always want you to know is that if you can make small changes over time, they add up to tremendous shifts, even transformation. At first, you just want to know what to do when your kid melts down. But then you need to figure out how am I actually going to coach them so that they have their own inner resilience, so they actually have less meltdowns. You may want less power struggles, so like your kids are listening better. But then how do you get them to actually have self-initiative and be self-directed and, even come up with some of these ideas on their own so that you don't have to tell them. So there's less to be listened to. Yeah. So all these things kind of come together. And I've developed this beautiful program for parents called the Family Foundation's Immersion. And right now we've just opened doors for our January cohort that starts in January 2021 after the new year. And I'm right now enrolling folks in so that we can start to plan now and get your changes that you want to make now and not have to wait till January. And I want to just really quickly tell you that there's a quick bonus where if you enroll by November 1st in the Immersion program, you actually get 2 bonus coaching sessions with me where we do a deep dive on specifically like what's in the way, what is your biggest obstacle and how can we clear it? What are 2, 3, or 4 skills you can teach your kids right now that will help you get through the holidays? For your kids, your age of kids, exact with their personalities, your struggles, your personality, all that in the mix, we would figure that out in our coaching sessions together. And also give you early access to my resilience program, which is a 9-module self-study. So if this piques your interest at all, you're like, Vanessa, I at least want to see if this is a good fit for me. I've been wanting mentorship from you in a more structured and formal way where we go through, all these topics together and have a lot of time together so that we can really implement them. If this is appealing to you, I need you to do something for me, okay? You need to go and take the Parent Discovery Quiz. The Parent Discovery Quiz goes through the big areas one by one and just asks you, do you feel like you're a beginner, like you're practicing, or like you are practically masterful or an expert in these areas? Okay, I'm putting it right into the, nope, that's not it. That's not it. I'm going to put it right into the chat. Let's see, where is it? Yes, I found it. I'm going to put it right in. So I want you to have it. So because I only have a few more spots left to talk to folks before the bonuses go away. So this is your time to do that, to seize on that, okay? If what you've been hearing in here makes sense to you, this is also just an opportunity for you to get some more refined advice that's more specific. I'll get together with you for 20 minutes, as long as you qualify for a session, and we'll talk through and get you a mini plan that you can start with right away with no obligation, okay? But it'd be fun to explore if it's a good fit for you to join my year-long immersion as well. So for today's training, we're going to get into survival skill 7. And it's kind of like saving the best for last. This is the one that if you were to, just grab one of the 3 things I'm going to share today, you could see a difference within the next week. I've seen it happen time and time again. I actually, create whole trainings around each of these topics. So you're getting like a condensed version of it right now. So when we want to build more resilience in the family, what we're finding out, and this is based on a big body of research. I'm actually going to pull a quote here from it, which is that they found that the most significant determinant of resilience, noted in nearly every review of or study of resilience in the last 5 decades, is the quality of our close personal relationships. Now, if you're listening with me, I want you to think about this for you. What is something that you've noticed makes a difference to you when you're trying to, for example, get through a hard time when it comes to having a close relationship? I just want you to think right now. I'm just also grabbing something here for us. I want you to think right now, like who in your life do you turn to when things are hard? What kind of people do you tend to lean on when you really are having a hard time with, say, work or your stress levels, or maybe you're having some heartbreak, these kinds of things? Who do you turn to and why? Why do you turn to that person? What is it about that person that really makes the difference so that you can, weather the storm? So I want you to think of a specific person and go ahead and close your eyes and actually picture them in your mind, okay? I want you to see their face in your mind. And I want you to imagine picking up the phone and calling them, and just that great feeling you have of like, I am so grateful that this person's in my life. What would I do without so-and-so, right? And really think about that person, okay? In the meantime, I'm going to set something up here. So as you're thinking about this person, I want you to actually visualize their face. Like, what do they look like when they're giving you that look of empathy and concern and support? How do their eyes look? How does their mouth or face look? What does their voice sound like? Okay. Now, once you've got that person in your mind, I just want to catch some folks up here. We are doing a visualization exercise that's going to help us to tune into how to nurture rock solid relationships with our kids. So if you're just joining us, what I want you to do is close your eyes and really think about a person in your life who you feel deeply supported by. Somebody who you would go to when, the waters are rocky, when things are stormy, when you are experiencing a loss or a heartbreak, or you're really stressed out. Who would you turn to? I want you to really visualize that person. So once you've got it, I want you to feel into like what it's like to be around that person. And I ask you a couple questions. When you're in the presence of this person, do you feel more hopeful or more pessimistic? When you're around this person, do you feel open to ideas and suggestions, or closed off and feel like fighting them on their ideas, pushing back? How do you feel, if you could say it in a word or two, around this person? Do you feel more relaxed? Do you feel more open? Do you feel more seen, understood, accepted, heard? What is it like to be around this person? Okay. So what I want us to shift to now is imagine that once you work through some of the obstacles standing in the way right now with maybe your toughest kid, or maybe all of your children, or maybe your partner, someone in your life that you're not feeling this way, or maybe you're noticing they're not feeling this way around you, imagine what it would be like to be the person that comes to mind for your child. Speed forward 20 years from now, they're sitting in front of someone like me and they're saying, close your eyes and imagine someone who you feel really, truly seen and loved and supported by. And they think of you. Yeah. This is the big one, y'all. This is the thing that our hearts want. At least that's what I found from my big-hearted, smart, dedicated parents all over the world, all over the globe, everywhere I go, China, Bulgaria, Colorado, San Diego, DC, all these different places I've given talks and shared my work. This is what teachers want too, educators, adults who dedicate their lives to children, whether it's their own children or other people's children. They'd really like to have this kind of effect and relationship with others. Yeah. And what we found is that the kids also really get to benefit from it. Early attachments to parents play a crucial lifelong role in human adaptation. This is a quote from Bessel van der Kolk, a professor of psychiatry at Boston U. And he's in the School of Medicine and has been researching post-traumatic stress and is the founder of Trauma Research Foundation in Boston. He says that how loved you felt as a child is a great predictor of how you manage all kinds of difficult situations in life. Now, if you think about that, the early experiences that our brains have and our spirits have, our humanity has with stress and trauma, and those who are there to support or not support us, is really shaping our landscape, sort of our sort of baseline for what we can give and what we can expect and what we can create in our lives, how well we can adapt, and even when there are really difficult circumstances. There have been adolescent studies that show that the chance of depression and anxiety goes way down when there's a warm, supportive, and demanding parent or caregiver in a child's life. That once they reach adolescence, they have like this fortitude to kind of deal with any kind of anxiety or depression in healthy ways before it gets the best of them. And they go to like high-risk behaviors or high-risk choices in order to adapt. It means how many of you can relate to maybe being in a situation in your teens and not feeling supported, and then turning to maybe some unhealthy options. Yeah. Okay, so we've taken a moment to visualize and imagine what it's like to be around the person that we feel loved and supported by. And then we've taken a moment to imagine what it would be like if we were the person that came to mind when our children do this exercise in the future, what it would mean to you, how meaningful it would be to be that person. Yeah. So what we're going to do is turn this into a gratitude practice. Now that we've really tuned into how important it is for us to be that supportive person that comes to mind, how much it's going to help our children. One thing we can do is, and this is a key one that I used in my research. Yeah, and I had tremendous results. Kids were much more cooperative, more engaged in school, much more likely to give their compliments instead of want to get them. I mean, all kinds of behavioral changes, better homework completion. I mean, unbelievable. Okay, it's just kind of like, wow. Is that the foundation of my research was to tell stories that would inspire gratitude. Now, the difference between introducing a gratitude practice that says, everybody share something that you're grateful for, which is a whole nother thing. It's fine. Solicited gratitude is also a worthwhile practice. But what I'm going to tell you about today, that I want you to start using with your family, especially, are stories of gratitude. Stories that you can share that inspire gratitude. And it's often just sharing stories of kindness. Okay. And I know this sounds like, oh, Vanessa, here we go. We're going to be in this idealized world. And, all these people are being so nice to each other. It's like, no, what I'm talking about is just everyday kindnesses. Okay. Things like, hey, kids, did you notice how Mom took an extra trip to the grocery store this week? Oh, you didn't? Yeah, well, she really wanted to make this delicious soup we're having tonight, and it was missing a few ingredients. So she got really organized and made sure she even put her mask on and washed her hands really well. And she drove across town to get the food, to get this like peas, carrots, and beans to be able to make this really great vegetable soup we're having tonight. I think it's not nice of mommy. I'm so glad that she did that because we get to enjoy this delicious soup. You haven't told your children to be grateful for the soup, haven't shoulded them into it, like you should be grateful to her. Then you just kind of sit back and wait and see what happens. And then oftentimes we can ask some follow-up questions like, what do you think? Why do you think she did all of that? Well, she must really want us to have delicious soup. Oh, what did she give up to do that? Should she give up some of her time? Was she maybe didn't get to go to her yoga class because she had to drive across town or something, right? You can start to help them see like what the person gave up, what it cost them. And then you could say, oh, wow, she must really care a lot about you. I wonder what feelings she has inside for you to want to do that for you. Oh, she must love us very, very much. Yeah, she must. I wonder what kind of, seems like she's a really good, like a kind person maybe. What do you think? Yeah, she's such a loving person. She's got the biggest heart ever. I love my mommy. You can imagine. You could say, wow, sometimes when we have that feeling inside, it's really a feeling of like gratefulness or gratitude where we're like, feel like we want to say thank you, or we want to give mommy a big hug, or maybe do something nice for her. How are you feeling right now about this? Oh, it feels so good. I would yay, mommy, I want to go give her a hug right now. And then they run off and give her a hug, and so it doesn't always have that result right away. But what I can tell you, and I had some kids like this in my class, around anything that was too like, I don't know, kind of like touchy-feely or like, kind of cheerful. They're kind of like, are you treating me like a little baby? They have that kind of chip on the shoulder. No, you just tell them. You just tell them the truth. You tell them true stories, and you have them think about things, and eventually they kind of come around if they're a tough nut to crack. And this one boy who only wanted to say he was thankful for pizza. He wouldn't like kind of transfer it to people, And then I finally was like, oh, tell me about something hard that happened in your family recently. He goes, well, my mom had to go to the doctors. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, she had to go to the hospital for a week. I said, oh, wow, sounds pretty serious. He goes, yeah. And I was like, was there anybody there helping? And then he's like, well, there was this really nice doctor. Actually, there were a lot of doctors, and they were so nice. And I was like, oh, how did they help? And we got into the story. And next thing you know, I was like, you know what you could add to the gratitude wall? Doctors. And he's like, oh, you're right. I could. Doctors. I'm very thankful to those doctors. And I'm like, good. Yeah. So it's like that, but you do it with your own family members. So just noticing, like catching your kids being kind, noticing and pointing out when other adults are being kind and thoughtful is such like relationship glue. It just really makes everyone kind of stick together and see how you are really supporting each other. And it gives them this feeling like they're surrounded by like all these people who actually are doing things, for their behalf, so that they're not just sort of coasting through with an entitled attitude or ignoring all these great things that they have. Yeah. You can even tell stories about the things that they receive. Like, something comes through Amazon from grandma, it doesn't have the same feel as like grandma looking at them and, giving it to them and stuff. But you can still, tell the story of how grandma went on the website and she looked for something you liked. And I think she probably spent an hour on that. I heard she asked me a bunch of questions of what you wanted, what she thought would be fun. I wonder why do you think she picked this? Oh, because she knows I like these kinds of stories. You're like, wow, yeah. So my number one tip is to start telling gratitude stories that helps kids have more awareness of the people in their lives who love them, support them, and care about them, in this case, especially in your family, so that they can feel that web of interconnection and supportive people in their lives, start to appreciate them more. And what it does tend to do is soften some edges within relationships, which gets us to our next tip, but I don't want you to lose that one. So right now, what I would want you to do in the chats is I would like you to write down one gratitude story that you could tell your kids, just one. And I would make it about something that within your household is true, a true story of what happened in your household that involves somebody going out of their way to help or doing something extra kind. Maybe they gave up something so that your child could have something, even if it's just their time. Something that's tangible is usually best, rather than like, well, I was patient with you. Instead of yelling, I took a breath. It's like, it's a little stretch for them, but maybe, the fact that you moved your work schedule around to be able to sit with them at their Zoom meeting in the morning, and maybe your partner did, and you wanted to point out, wow, look at, daddy decided to move his lunch so that he could be with you at lunch. I think he really, really wants to spend time with you. I think he really loves and cares about you and wants to take an opportunity to share some time with you. Those kinds of stories. Now, if you're finding yourself reaching, like you're not able to come up with one right now, that's okay. But I want you to be on the lookout, okay? Have your little spyglass out for something good that your child gets to receive, and really help them tune into where it comes from, especially within the family unit, okay? This will make a difference, promise. Otherwise, I wouldn't have toured all over the country and the world sharing this practice, okay? So it's a big one. The next one is this, I'm gonna give you the short version of a big idea. It comes from Jane Nelson's Positive Discipline, and it really works. It's the idea that you connect as much as possible before you correct. So even if it's something as simple as, like, this is what one of my smart students did a few weeks back in the 6-day training right here in the Raising Our Resilience group. Those of you who are not in the group yet, you're gonna wanna hop over, click the link, and join us. Request to join, okay? Just a few questions. So you can join these other smart, dedicated parents, because what she did is she heard about the connect before you correct, and just the idea of the pause, like pausing before you go and launch into your reminding and everything, because she was just feeling like she was just getting ignored left and right and repeating herself and running herself ragged. How many of you can relate? I've been there so many times where I'm like, am I really saying this the 6th time? And am I really about to get really mad at a 4-year-old for not listening? Like, what is going on? What happened to my day? What happened to my week? What happened to my life? Like, this is not it, right? So I've been there. I've been there so many times. I was with, 3 to 6-year-olds for 5 years, and 6 to 9-year-olds for 10. And then I raised my own tweens and teens, and now 20-something. So trust me. And what I've learned is that if you come at kids like you're correcting them or reminding them or managing them or demanding something from them, they will eventually push back or ignore you. And it could look like a lot of things. It could be a full-on blowout, or they're yelling at you and refusing. And it could be a quiet, just pretend you don't exist, ignore, or like actually don't, like tune you out without even consciously doing it. It could be isolating themselves in their room, because every time they're around you, you have something that you want to say to, like, tell them what to do or criticize what they're doing, right? And you don't even mean to. You just try to run the ship, right? And they have so much to learn from you. It's hard not to do. And there's so many expectations we're trying to hold them to, like around cleanliness and hygiene, around getting the work done for school, around how they treat each other as siblings, or how they speak to you. There's just so much there, right? So much. So with all of that, I'll tell you what Jennifer did. She was here for the 6-day training. One morning, instead of saying again, come on boys, time for breakfast, come on over, come sit down, she walked over to where they were, and she noticed what they were doing, and she got side by side with them and connected with them. In this case, the connection strategy was to join their world. So she joined in their little Lego world, and just gave herself that break too. And it turned into a really natural transition, because she kind of joined in. She was able to enjoy them, saw that they were getting along, that they're having a lot of fun, they were being creative, they were really focusing, they're using their using their hands really well with great dexterity. She even started to like see how they were having fun and kind of enjoy it with them. But then at some point, she did a smart thing and said, did you know it's time for breakfast? Yeah. And then she told them about what she made, I think was what she did next. And then, so it went from connection to just connection, instead of connection to correction. That happens more than half the time. I think I'm catching myself about to correct or direct a child. And if I focus on connecting instead, oftentimes the correct or direct doesn't even need to happen. It's more like just gently sharing some information, like, did you know it's time for breakfast and I made this? oh, and they're like, oh, you know, instead of ignoring the fourth or fifth time you call from the kitchen saying, come on, boys, time for breakfast, right? So that's connect before correct. If I could have written one thing on Sharpie inside of my arm for like the many years, it would have been this tiny little print, connect before you correct, Vanessa. Okay, connect before you correct. So try that out this week. I want to hear about it. How does it go? Okay. Try to think of one way you can connect before you correct. They say in relationship research that at the minimum, we need a 4-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions for a relationship to stay positive. And in romantic relationships, it's more like 10 or 12-to-1. Yeah. Anyways, that's a whole nother tip I have, but you can imagine how much connecting before correcting helps to keep that ratio going 4-to-1 at least. Okay, last tip. So you've got tell gratitude stories, write it in the comments so you don't forget. It's a really great way to tell me that you listened and you're getting something from this training. To tell gratitude stories about people in your household. So tell gratitude stories, maybe the first thing. Second was connect before you correct. And the third one, to really build a rock solid positive relationship. And it's going to sound kind of simple, but it's so powerful. And I've done trainings on just this. I flew all the way to Minnesota to do this at a social justice conference for Montessori teachers, talking about how to use this framework, this idea, to create a less biased environment for educators and students, which is focus on their strengths, even when they're being challenging. And this takes some savvy. Hi, Gayla. Glad to see you here. Glad you're listening. Yes, tell gratitude stories. And then you've got some more. What you do is you see them doing a thing that would normally be bothersome. It would irk you. It would frustrate you. It's out of bounds. And as long as it's, I'm talking about things that are like, even if it's a little dicey, but it's not like totally unsafe. In other words, something that you can actually step back and kind of watch it play out for a moment. Like Jennifer did with the kids playing Legos. They were not following her directions, but they also weren't really creating any, danger or anything like that, or any harm. And do a smart thing that Jennifer did. Step back, notice and observe at least one thing that's going right. And then when you see that one thing that's going right, try and connect it to a strength that you see in that child, whether it's both of them, both the children or one child. And it's especially important when they're not following your expectations or rules. Here's an example. I'll use Jennifer's example. Let's start with that. So they were not listening. So you could consider that they're being naughty because or at least being annoying for tuning her out when she called them to breakfast, right? But instead she sat there and she noticed creativity. She noticed maybe appreciation of beauty, right? Because they were like matching the colors and creating something beautiful with the Legos. She also noticed some other kinds of developmental strengths like concentration and focus, coordination, communication, right? Because they were, collaborating with each other. So some of their social intelligence and teamwork were coming through. She might have noticed leadership from her older one, kind of leading the charge of like what they were making and finding a way to get little brother involved. Yeah. She might have noticed humor if something fell down and they laughed about it instead of getting mad. Yeah. And also some resilience. So just in these one snapshot moments, if she could pick even one of those things, which she did, she said they're having fun and they're getting along. It's really good to see their friendship growing. Yeah. If you can pick one thing to appreciate, like even when a kid in my class was just being super disruptive, like just so much, expression going on. I was just like, wow, they have a lot of zest today, And that way, it just gives you a way to appreciate what is organically happening, like perseverance when your child is being stubborn, creativity when they draw on the wall. You can, the sky's the limit here with reframing things from a strengths-based perspective. My favorite one is, wow, they're really experimenting and learning like a little scientist. Because sometimes kids are testing you and testing the limits and trying to get attention in negative ways or trying to figure out power because they're experimenting. They're like little scientists. How does power work? How does attention work? what do I do with this bad feeling? Can I get revenge? You know, like all these things. What if I'm not, or like, what if I'm not good at this? You know, how do I get better at this? What happens if I, right? And then they try something. So sometimes just simply saying like, wow, little scientist, that can create a powerful reframe. All of this to say that we as adults have an opportunity to shift our focus on things that our kids are displaying that we can applaud, even if they're out of bounds, even if they're doing something irritating. We can still find something to appreciate about them, admire about them, and maybe even reflect back to them in a way that will help them to grow and be even more responsible for their impact when you name it. I can't tell you the hundreds of times that I've said, wow, it looks like you really are enjoying your sense of humor today and making some silly jokes. Yeah. And I'm also noticing your friendship here. Like you guys are really getting along. This seems like a lot of fun. Hey, do you mind if I share something with you? Okay, now I've got their attention. They're like, oh, you see me and you appreciate something about me and you kind of get why I'm doing this. Like I'm not a bad kid, right? And I can say, when you make the joke about someone else, it actually hurts them right here. And then they're not sure if they want to be at school and they get really sad. Do you think that might have happened? Let's look at, so-and-so's face. Do they look like they're laughing too? No. Oh. I wonder what you might do about that. Next thing you know, I've got a kid apologizing for the thing that they did because they're able to acknowledge their impact because I connected before I corrected with something I appreciate about what's happening. Just saying like, I get it. You're kids, you have this, you're people, you have these things going on, right? And you're probably not aware of your impact. Let me help you be aware of that now. So that's kind of a pro tip right there, that when you connect before you correct, when you tell gratitude stories, when you look through a strengths-based lens, it actually opens doors into really meaningful conversations where there's a lot of mutual trust and mutual respect. Can you think of someone in your life who does that with you? They need to bring something up, a hard topic, but they make sure they like catch up with you first and really, and then they're kind of like, hey, something I've been wanting to talk to you about. Do you have a minute? How much better that tends to go, right? It's like the difference between like you're at work at your desk and the manager comes in and goes, why are you late to the meeting? It already started, right? Which sometimes fair enough. This is the 10th time you're late and it's just like breaking point, right? But wouldn't you much rather work for someone who's like, hey, I noticed you're not at the meeting. What's going on? Or, wow, you look really focused. I appreciate you must be working on something important. And then you can either be like, oh crap, no, I'm just on Facebook. Or you're like, yeah, I'm under a deadline and I meant to let you know I was going to be late, and just kind of give some space, right, for connection and repair and correction that feels more mutually respectful and based on like benefit of the doubt, some mutual trust. Because if we assume of the worst of our kids, guess what? They're going to stop wanting to impress us. They already know that they've lost your respect or your appreciation or admiration. So they have like nothing to rise to. Yeah. All right. So that's our wrap up of our 7 skills. This is our 7th big one. It's the one that I've done the most research on, and I'm so happy you made it through to watch all the tips. Telling gratitude stories, connecting before correcting, trying to see things as much as you can from a strengths-based perspective. If this is exciting to you, if this is something that you're like, Vanessa, obviously, this makes so much sense, this is clicking for me, then you might be a good fit for our Family Foundation's Immersion program. We studied together for a whole year, and we traveled together as a cohort with other parents just like you who are like big-hearted, dedicated, smart, also are a little befuddled, wanting to know, what do I do with my kids' challenging behaviors? How do I get them to listen better? How do I get our relationship back on track? How do I get the siblings to stop fighting? I mean, there's so many possible reasons why people end up in the program, but they all have something in common, which is that they want their kids to build skills for resilience, and they want to do that now. They don't want to wait. They may also, a lot of folks just are kind of just real with like, there are certain parts of raising resilient kids or just raising kids in general that don't come naturally to me. It's just hard. It's like really tricky to get the kids on a smooth routine, really tricky to get kids to set, to, like follow limits that I set. It's really hard to even come up with the appropriate limits that my kid can actually, thrive within. I don't really know how to do conflict. I kind of avoid conflict. now I have a kid and I can't avoid it. I really have to be, you know, a good role model of how to solve conflicts. I don't know how to do that yet. Or I've tried some things and it's not working. I need help. That's how you know it's a good fit for you to take the quiz so we can clarify which of these things you need the most support with. And we can explore if it makes sense for you to continue with more mentorship, whether it's in the immersion program with the other parents, whether it's in a private, you know, private program with me, or it's something totally different. Maybe it's time for you to, you know, go and do something totally different that will support you. But I would love to help you figure it out. So if you could go ahead and take the quiz. I've got a few sessions this week left, I think 2 on Tuesday and 3 on Sunday that I'm opening up. And if you do, you can have the opportunity to join the immersion during this kind of special early bird bonus window where you can get 2 free coaching sessions. So it's a good time to do this. And I hope that I have a chance to support you either here in the group or over in one of our strategy sessions. So go ahead and take the quiz, and I'll be talking to you soon. All right. Oh, and I've got some exciting stuff coming up. I'm going to be interviewing author of a book called Pause. I've got some great gratitude tips for you as you roll into Thanksgiving beyond the gratitude stories one. So you're going to want to stay tuned for Mondays at 2. We'll be back next week. I'll see you then.